Signal just flipped and markets could bleed. Let me show you what I mean. In my Discord, we have someone who posts something called the signal, and it does give you insight into when the market will go down and when the market will start to recover. And it isn't always accurate. Sometimes it does have false positives. That being said, it has predicted all of the major crashes like the dot-com crash, 2008, 2020, 2022, and the tariffs in 2025, which you can see right here, telling you both the top and the bottom. Now, this doesn't mean that you should trust it with 100% accuracy, but it can give you a good idea of when you might be in a little bit more danger and when you need to be prepared to protect yourself. Now, what does this mean for what I'm personally doing? Well, I am not panicking. Let me show you. During the last 3 to 4 weeks, it went from my total net worth in here being 453 down to 402, and I'm not panicking. Actually, I have been buying more. Let me show you. So I made my first buy on November 14th where I bought $1,500 worth. I did buy $1,000 worth shortly after to round my shares up to even numbers. And then the other day you saw I had bought $10,000 worth of SPMO and SCHG. Yesterday on November 20th, I did buy $3,500 worth. Now, my plan here is I'm going to wait and see what happens over the next few weeks. But if the market keeps going down, I'm going to continue to buy. I might wait a little bit and buy in bulk every couple of percentage points, but I'm not going to panic. I'm certainly not going to sell. In my experience, this is when you can make money. You lose money when you panic, when you sell, when you buy things that you don't have high conviction in. Personally, I only buy powerful ETFs that are well diversified amongst many various stocks. And I'm actually diversifying more outside of just tech and into a few other sectors that are held within SPMO and SCHG. Let's take a look at SCHG and SPMO to see what I'm diversifying into. SCHG has about 50% in tech, and then it's broken up in various other sectors like communication, consumer cyclical, financial, healthcare, industrials, and so on. It does have a lot of the same companies as VGT because tech is dominating at this time. However, you do have other companies such as Amazon, Tesla, Meta, Google, Visa, and more. Now, when we take a look at SPMO, you'll see that the holdings are a little bit different, but it does carry over a lot of the same holdings. Here, we only have 34% in technology. We do have a lot more weighting in financial sector, communication sector, industrial sector, and consumer, defensive, and cyclical sectors. Here we do see a little more Broadcom, Meta, JP Morgan and Chase, Netflix, Visa, Walmart, and others. This does diversify me a bit more out of technology, and it does help spread my risk across other sectors. So when the market does decline, I am not just 99% in technology. I'm happy to diversify now that I've built a lot of concentration in one sector. My strategy to build wealth is to have concentration first and diversify later. That has done very, very well for me. You should do research to see what works for you. I recently was seeing someone in someone else's Discord who was panicking because the S&P 500 is down 5% from all-time highs. Now, this is very common. A lot of people aren't meant for the stock market. And a 5% decrease in the S&P is not even a correction. It is just the market taking a little breath. So if we were to look, the all-time high for the S&P was 632 per share, and right now it's 600 per share, which is about a 5% decrease. Now, when we look at technology, the market has dropped quite a bit more. So the all-time high was around 801, and now it's 715 per share, which is around an 11% dip. And it gets even worse when we look at Bitcoin. When we look at Bitcoin, the current price is 83,000 and the all-time high was 124,000, which is a 33% dip. Now, this is why in many of my other videos, I do have one of my rules, which I personally say is that I do not buy any cryptocurrencies with leverage, that this is how you can easily get margin called. And I'm sure now many of you can see exactly what I mean. Cryptocurrency is not inherently bad, but with leverage, it's a good way to get yourself into a lot of trouble and to perhaps get over leveraged and get margin called. Now, this doesn't happen as easily when you have ETFs. Of course, you still need to be careful. And of course, you need to watch your margin health. Mine is currently at 64%, and I have a long way that I can fall before I get myself into any trouble. Now, I haven't tapped into any of my reserves, such as my paid off truck. I haven't borrowed from my paid off truck. I haven't taken out any loans to increase my margin health, and I'm not panicking. The market is just down a little bit. Of course, no one knows exactly what will happen in the market, and anyone telling you they do is just BSing you. That being said, you're obviously here because you are curious what my thoughts are. I think that the market will fall at least twice as far as it has already fallen. I think that Bitcoin will fall far below 83,000. I think that we might see Bitcoin hit 60,000 again. I think the S&P will go down at least 5% more. I think that VGT and technology sector will go down another 10 to 15%. I don't think it will go much further than that, but you never know what will happen. So you need to be prepared for the worst case scenario. Anything can happen. And if you're using margin, you need to be especially careful because you can lose a lot of money if you're using margin and you don't have any contingencies in place. It's a great way to build wealth, but it's also a dual-edged sword where you could lose a lot of money if you don't know what you're doing, if you're buying things that you're not having high conviction in, and if you don't have any contingencies in place for what happens if the market falls. I used to think that it mattered what your monthly payment was with margin. Now I see that what really matters as you get bigger is your total outstanding balance and your margin health. And I've always known that margin health matters. But now that I have a much larger portfolio than when I had started, I see that that is what matters the most, is your margin health and your total outstanding balance. If you can't quickly pay back that total outstanding balance, this is where you could get yourself into some trouble. I know I posted a video saying that I don't have an emergency fund, but that doesn't mean that based on your risk tolerance that you should not have an emergency fund. And you need to make sure that you're being careful. Investing does come with risk, but this is where there's the greatest opportunity. This is why I don't buy when we're reaching all-time highs and I wait for the market to drop down. I get to boost my future gains by buying at a discount. I don't personally want to buy when the market is going up and up. That's the exact opposite of what I like to do. I like to wait until the market starts to go down and then I like to start to buy. And this is when most people panic and this is why I outperform most people. Now, do your own research. I'm not saying that this strategy is for everyone, but this is what I personally do. If you want to see in real time how I am navigating through this downturn, feel free to join my Discord. Now, of course, my Discord isn't free, but here's what you do get inside. You get the signal. That itself costs $99 per year. You get to see real-time plays and capital recycling updates of how I'm managing through this downturn. You get to see success stories with how others are using leverage, and you get direct access to me and a community of others who take action. And my promise to you is simple. I'll keep dropping real, usable insights in real time as how I am navigating through everything and how I'm building wealth. No fluff, just what actually works. Stay safe out there and see you next time.